what is everybody's favorite topic? Everybody's favorite topic is always themselves.
Yeah.
So if you walk up to anybody at any function and you just start interviewing them about themselves, they fucking love you.
It feels good, man. It feels good, right? Yo, I'm in the light at the end of the tunnel. Paper stacks, yeah, I got them in the bundles. Harry Potter breaking bread with the muggles. They said I wouldn't make it, now they looking puzzled. They said I wouldn't take it, how to go on hustle.
All right, Ty, you got your whistle?
Always, man. This is old trusty, man. This thing can referee about 190 games.
Hey, Paul, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's rock.
All right, Ty, you ready?
Yep.
Timeout. Tyler, who the heck are we sitting down with today?
Dude, Kevin and Paul, I almost just blew a new veneer out on that whistle right there. Oh my goodness, you almost just saw a tooth fly. Man, that threw me off a little bit. But ladies and gentlemen, we have Paul Guglielmo, the CEO of Craft Canary, the new president of the Rochester Rotary. And Paul, thanks for jumping on our show up there in the 585 in your car and your wife's sunglasses, wherever the heck you are outside of your manufacturing joint. Man, and Paul, I just wanted to ask you, coming off the gate, have you ever met Don Shula, being an alumni of his?
At John Carroll University, his name was on everything. I wish I met him. He's from Painesville, Ohio. I go through that town all the time thinking to myself, Don was probably here. He probably ate there. He's been through that McDonald's drive-thru. He went to this grocery store. But no, I never met him. But actually, can I just for a second pull back the curtain on your show for a second? Because as a listener of your show, never, ever did I think that you guys were actually blowing whistles. I just assumed that was a sound effect.
Yeah, they're real, man. Yeah.
An inconsistent whistle at best, I think, is what we usually say. It could be anywhere. If we got sleeping kids, it's a little lower, but I'm in the office today. I'm sure I woke up a few folks, but yeah, Paul, you drive a lot, it sounds like, given what you do. And I just wanted to ask you, if you were to design like a bumper sticker, we've all seen a lot of them, or maybe one of those novelty license plates. What is Paulie putting on a license plate, or what is he putting on a bumper sticker?
Resilience. Just keep going. It is so hard. What we're going to talk about today, leadership, is so hard. And sometimes it's just survive. Just get to the next day. So resilience, I think, is the number one skill. I don't think I have a lot of skills, to tell you the truth. The one skill that I do occasionally look at and go, oh, you're good at that, is that I just won't go away. Just keep trying.
Can't wait to get into that. Ty?
Paul, where'd you learn that from, man? Because that's an old 90s trick that I've learned amongst some peers. I feel like the 90s people out there, they're just power, all right, 44 wham kind of guys. Double the nose, double the tackle, 2 yards in a cloud of dust. And we're all right with that, it seems like. We're not really throwing Hail Marys back in the day. No spread offense, no hurry up. But hell, man, we will show back up. I do know that. Where'd you get that from?
I just think I was always so desperate to find something I was actually good at. It's going to sound like I'm kidding. I'm not completely kidding. It's true. I was always just so desperate. Like I had a lot of friends. I was lucky growing up, but I never was I was never the star athlete. I was never the smart kid. I was never good at anything. And like, I just desperately wanted to find something I was good at. So much so that my mother used to tell me that I had a black cloud over my head. Okay. And this bothered me quite a bit. I mean, this was hurtful to me. She used to tell me, if you and your friends, when I was in high school, she'd say, you and your friends and your stupid little drinking parties, who's going to get in trouble? You. Right. Or like one day we were all jumping off my friend's roof into a snowbank. And she's like, you're the one who will break your arm. Right. Like she goes, you have a black cloud. Everything you do seems to go wrong. So I went to years of therapy for this. And then I used to work on the radio. I did years and years on the radio. And so I worked on the Brother Weeds show, which is kind of famous here in Rochester. Right. And so I told Weez says, let's get the old lady on the phone one day. We call my mom on the radio. And I tell her, Mom, I love you so much. You've been my rock. But there is one thing that I live with every day that it hurts me. And I tell her that. And you would think that she would have said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. She doubled down live on the radio and said, because Wheeze is doing the talking for me. He's like, I'm going to act as Paulie's agent here. She doubled down and said, well, Brother Wheeze, he has always had a black cloud over his head. So then, to get back to answering your question, she said, but you know what I respect about him more than anyone I've ever known? He tries really hard.
Man, yeah, I love that. We're gonna have a good conversation today. You said a few things in there, but I think that's the beauty of it. I think sometimes our mothers know us best, right? And sometimes some of the things that bother us most about them are the things we most don't like about us. I love what you said, and the part about resiliency, and Tyler, it might be a '90s thing, but before we get into that, talking about '90s, it's all about the game shows. And Paulie, if you could be a guest on any game show, like family game show or just game show in general, there were some good ones through the '90s, early 2000s. What show do you wish you could be a guest on waking up tomorrow?
What was that? What was it called? What was the Nicollet Temple of the Temple or something? Legends of the Hidden Temple?
Legends of the Hidden Temple?
Yeah. Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yeah, that's a great one, and absolutely would I say yes to that show. Oh my God.
That was kind of scary too. Like they came out and popped that out at you, and you're like, I'm a freaking barracuda or whatever. Spicy monkey. You got really cool names.
Yeah. I love that show.
Dude, yes. Paulie, who was the coolest guest y'all interviewed back in the day when you were on the radio?
Okay, I get asked. This is a question I actually do get asked a lot, and there was a bunch of good ones. But number one in 2016, Hillary versus Trump. Hillary did this thing where she just deployed celebrities to speak on her behalf for like 2 months before that election, and so we were getting A-listers. I mean, this is Rochester, so we're getting C-listers most of the time. But for like a 2-month period,
in Rochester, but hard.
Yeah. Dallas, you all get A-listers on your local media, but in Rochester, it's not. But for that like month or two, we were getting A-listers because they were all like, get out and vote. And so the number one was Carole King, the songwriter. Carole King.
No kidding. Okay?
She was in studio with us, and it was 3 human beings in that studio for whatever reason that day. I think because there were 2 co-hosts. I was co-host and producer. There was another co-host, and then there was Wheeze. And the other co-host was off that day. So it was me and Wheeze alone and Carole King. So I am in a room with 3 people, 2 of them legends. And I was very nervous, and I'm not easily nervous. But I had the opportunity to look Carole King in the eye and say, I am so appreciative of your work and all the music and all the beautiful things you've written in your life. And she looked me right back in the eye and said, thank you so much. And that moment right there was magic. That was just magic. So Carole King, long story short.
Yeah. She's like the modern day Taylor Swift, or was like the previous Taylor Swift. She wrote, authored, she did all of that within her own music. She reminds me a lot of Bob Dylan, and I know they had a lot of parallels between their careers themselves.
So many of her own songs, but also so many songs that others made famous.
Correct. Yeah,
right?
And then you would listen to and be like, "Who wrote?" And it was Carole King was the writer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Incredible. And I was actually just at a wedding with Brother Wheeze's son there, Jake. So I know Brother Wheeze, and yeah. So we had a good time at that wedding. Hence my voice right now, so it's gone. But we're gonna get through this today. Yeah. Last but not least, I always love asking this question. You not only make food, so I assume that you like food. But if you were taking Tyler and I out here in Rochester, where are you taking us? Like, what is the spot, and what dish do we have to try?
If you give me that task, we're not going to one place. We're doing a progressive dinner. You ever do a good progressive dinner? So we're either going to Neighborhood of the Arts or we're going to the public market. We're going to do drinks at one place, apps, dinner, and then dessert at 4 places that are all within walking distance of each other. And I'm lazy. Oh. So all of them are going to be like 3-4 minutes. So either NOTA, Neighborhood of the Arts, or public market. And it would probably be something like drinks at Bitter Honey, apps at Velvet Belly, apps at Rohrbach, dinner at Velvet Belly, and then dessert at Cure in the public market. Yeah.
One of those are great. I would love to try that. I have not done it that way. I've gone to a place where they bring you out multiple dishes, but not going to multiple places. Yeah. That sounds intense, but also insanely fun.
Yeah.
That's next level.
I love doing that. Yeah.
Are those empanadas still down there?
Oh yeah. Flower City empanadas when the market's open.
Okay.
There's Juan and Maria's, which I think is the one you're thinking of in the public market. The public market, though, the restaurants I said are the ones that are like brick and mortar restaurants, open all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The empanadas only open when the market's open, but fantastic empanadas.
Oh, and some awesome sauces. I know I'm always in a good sauce spot when it looks like those sauces. It's like not very elegant at all, the bottle, and it looks like a little pasty, and it's like off orange or like, puke city green. Like that's where that turns my eyelids up a little bit and really get after it, Paul.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love a good sauce. I'm known to order all. They'll say, which sauce would you like with it? I go, all of them. And then they'll go, oh, well, we have to charge $1 extra per sauce. I'm like, no hesitation. Bring them.
Yeah.
A flight. I want a flight of sauces.
I love sauces.
I might be the biggest hot sauce guy. I actually have a fridge shelf dedicated to hot sauce. So I appreciate all the canning that you're doing, because I know I saw a couple down the last time I was down at the Pittsford Dairy on Park Ave there. I was like, oh, Paul must be in this place, because I saw all the barbecue sauces that were coming out of the cannery as well.
Yeah, the only negative, because I want to tell you something so bad, but I can't, unfortunately, is that we have confidentiality with our clients. So in many cases, I can tell you stuff we make, but in some cases I can't. And there's one I'm dying to tell you about that we make that's famous, but I can't do it publicly. I'll do it as soon as we get done recording. Steaks, I hate putting that on the podcast like that. But since I know you're a connoisseur, I'll tell you a famous one we do.
All right, great. Well, let's dive into it. You mentioned earlier that maybe the first place I'd like to start is you mentioned the Rochester Rotary. I know Tyler mentioned it before. Each year is kind of this new president. I had heard a story out in the community that if you went down the list within the office building, that each and every person is kind of in a shirt and tie, suit, looking real professional. However, your photo, you did something drastically different. Because you didn't want to break your authenticity with yourself. Let's talk about that photo. Let's talk about what you wore, and then maybe what was your greatest lesson that you've learned so far stepping into that role.
Okay, so I am not somebody who dresses up really ever. I don't even have that many dress clothes, and I thought that what I wore to that, I thought I did dress up for that photo shoot. I wore a collared shirt. I wore a golf shirt, and I was like, this might as well be a tuxedo. Like, like, come on, this thing's got a collar on it. What do you guys want from me? Actually, though, a former Timeout with Leaders guest, Donna Dede, was the president of Rochester Rotary when I first joined. And when I first joined, my very first lunch, she was president. And I showed up in shorts and like a T-shirt or something. I was in radio at the time. Between radio and manufacturing, I have been blessed with never having to dress up for work. I am 41 years old, and I am 100% a child when you look at the clothes that I own. So I show up, I'm mortified that I've shown up in shorts and a T-shirt, because I knew Rotary for years and years prior to that. And I had been to many Rotary meetings in small towns where people did show up in T-shirts and jeans to things, to Rotary meetings. But Rochester Rotary is different. Rochester Rotary is very prestigious. And after the lunch, I introduced myself to, I knew Donna, but I said to Donna, I said, it's my first meeting. And I told her, I am so sorry. This is what I wear. This is how I feel comfortable. But I am so sorry that I didn't wear a jacket, a tie. She interrupted, and she said, "This is how you're comfortable." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "If you ever dress in a way that doesn't make you comfortable, I will fine you. You wear a T-shirt and jeans if that's what makes you comfortable." And I thought that was the most beautiful thing ever. And now, years and years later, I've kind of become known as like the guy who dresses down. and made it okay. And now we have a few members who dress down, who work in the trades or something, who do just kind of come over in jeans and whatever they're wearing that day. And I think it's great. I think it's, to tell you the truth, I do think that it's a bit of a step into the future. I think that millennials and Gen Z especially tend to be a little less formal in what they wear day to day. And so I'm proud of that. But I also wonder if there's any chance I'm just totally effing it up the whole time too. So I don't know.
I think your personality takes care of that, Paulie. Yeah. I just met you, man. I feel like you could talk music for one for just months at a time. Am I right about that?
Anything. I talk to you about anything. That was the idea about being in radio was, can you talk about 1,000 different things? Now, the problem is I'm not an expert in anything. So if you want a deep dive, I'm screwed. But a little bit of anything. Let's talk.
Dude. Man, I say we dig into to understand how you got into the sauce game, man. Because like we shared earlier, I got into it for some fun. I opened a food stand up there, showed up to rodeos a little bit, have limited supply because of my production was in my kitchen. But Paulie, how the heck did you get into that from radio? And one day you just woke up and you're the sauce guy? Well, tell us the story there.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Northeast Ohio, came to Rochester, and I came here for my job at the time, which was radio. And the one thing I really, really missed about home, and I came here when I was in my early 20s, so I was still a kid. And I really missed, I was homesick for those Sunday sauces. I mean, I would go to my grandfather's house every single Sunday for Sunday sauce, pasta, meatballs, sausage, the whole deal. And I missed that. And so I started to make it every Sunday here by myself in my little studio apartment. And then as I became friends with people at work, I would make extra and I would bring leftovers into work. People would try them. And eventually Brother Weeze got his hands on leftover sauce, right? And so one day on the radio, he's trying some and we come back on the air and he's very, speaking of authenticity, he's the most authentic you get. So if he's still eating when we come on the air, you're hearing him. And he's just like, bro, you bottle this, guaranteed, bro. You bottle this, right? And so we had a live text. You could live text the show, which was terrible for your self-esteem if you're like kind of a fat, awkward kid, but really good this day. This was a really good day for this because like 20 different people texted the show and they were like, if you bottled your sauce, I would buy a jar. And my original business plan was if I bottled 22 bottles of sauce, as I've gotten these 22 texts, and sold them all for $1 more than it cost me to make them, I could make $22. That was the business plan. And today I'm sitting outside of an 11,000 square foot building with 16 employees inside. So that was the original day one business plan. Just make 22 jars. Anyway, I do that. I pursue that little Googling. How does one bottle sauce commercially? I find out that we are so blessed to live in Rochester because Cornell University is right down the road. Not only Ithaca, but even closer in Geneva, they have their food science department. So the food science department of Cornell is actually only an hour from Rochester. And so I went through them to get everything buttoned up. And eventually I went through, do you remember this when you were doing your sauce? Do you remember how hard it was to find someone to make the sauce? It was very hard to find a co-packer. And so I always remembered that years and years. I did eventually find a co-packer, I should say. But years and years later, as many people would ask me, help me crack that code. How do I get my thing up and running? How do I launch? Years and years later, I kind of figured out that maybe the problem that really needed solved, if we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, wasn't sauce in a jar. I mean, that already existed. There were about 1 million of those. But helping other people have access to small scale manufacturing so that they could also become entrepreneurs and launch their own sauce brands. If you have a sauce and you call co-packers, you just Google co-packers, you're going to get some names, but they're going to tell you their minimums are 1,000 gallons. It's 6-figure investment just to get that first run made. And here we can get you up and running for a couple $1,000s. It's still a lot of money, but it's not enough to like ruin your life if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
You know?
Which you're taking a big risk, right? And I think some people taking that smaller leap is more appetizing, right? It's not, I have to invest all of this, but just let me see how it goes. And I love how you put it, is like that's the crux of what you described really is, what problem do you solve or do you help with, is true entrepreneurism. It's finding that niche. It's not that you were the first to invent bottled tomato sauce, right? Ragu himself was living in Rochester for quite some time that my family has some ties to, but we have that deep history. And that's what I love about the family recipes. When you get to try all those different sauces, there's a lot of freaking history in those sauces, a lot of trial and error by the time that you're tasting them. And I think we're all kind of talking about our trials and errors, Paulie. I think I hear a man that mentions therapy very open and honestly. I mean, that's something that us men and us millennials, we're getting more and more comfortable talking about. But I don't remember my dad ever talking about it. It was like a foreign thing. We held some of that stuff, especially in Italian families, like, so close to the chest, because we had this false sense of perfectionism, right? I have no problems on our side. Let's talk about those. That family down the street, right? Sounds like you've done a lot of work on yourself. That like Tyler and I, we used to be the party boys, right? The center of attention at every party because we had to be, or so we thought. You've evolved. I've evolved. Tyler has evolved. What type of work got you comfortable with being the Paulie that we're seeing here today, in his T-shirt, in his wife's sunglasses, in her car, not trying to be something that you're not?
A couple of things. So you mentioned therapy, and I'll give that its kudos. I'll also mention my grandfather, who I started the pasta sauce business in. His namesake was Guglielmo's, is what it's called, and it's got him right on it. And then Brother Weeze. I would say those are the three big pillars. So my grandfather was a very authentic, wear your heart on your sleeve person. I heard him many times just, tell people the most embarrassing things about himself openly and just make him funny. Weeze was the same way. Brother Weeze was so authentic. He was kind of like, look, just be yourself. It's the easiest way to go. And also, if you're looking for people who are, your people, who are going to be my friends, who are going to be my partners in life, if you are your authentic self, you will find your people. You really will. And then thirdly is the formal thing, the therapy, the anxiety that I feel. I live with anxiety every day. I know everybody does, of course, but I live with anxiety every single day. I am nervous. I am constantly overthinking things. And I have spent years and years in therapy working on just kind of a toolkit for myself on how, when I get into this rut or that rut, I know what are the mental gymnastics I can play that'll get me out of them. And one really good example is I battle with depression a little bit. I don't have very severe depression, to tell you the truth. I know some people have it way worse than I do, but I can get in these like moods of kind of like, what's the point? What's it all for? Why would, and it just kills your motivation to do anything, even get out of bed. You just think to yourself, well, what is the reason I would do anything? None of it matters. That's what happens in my head. So I go to my therapist and we work on this. And she taught me a good exercise, which is always have something on your calendar that you are passionately looking forward to. And so I keep a really detailed calendar. Also, I defend this because I know that everybody in the world makes fun of people who take pictures and videos when they go to concerts and sporting events. Like, you're never going to watch the fireworks on your phone. Right? I do. I'm the guy that does. I'm the guy that watches the fireworks on my phone because I remember how happy I was that night. And that brings me back to being that happy that night. And those are more tools from therapy, is go back to that moment when you were happy, or look forward to that moment when you know you're going to be happy. And so every time somebody says, at a concert, everyone's got their phones up and they go, oh, just enjoy the concert. Don't record the concert. I go, I need this, man. I need this because I love it. I'm having so much fun right now. But in a month, I might have a really down day. I want to go back and look at this video.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Man. Likewise, Paulie. And man, what do you love and like to get into outside of work, outside of radio, outside of, the canned sauces? What does Paulie really, truly love?
Well, I always loved radio. I did it. So I left to do this. This really blew up on me, and it's great. It's a great problem to have. But so I do a podcast, and I've formally invited you guys to be guests in the near future. But I've always loved radio and broadcasting, and so I keep doing a podcast, and I release an episode every single Sunday just because I love that, have passion for that. I have a 5-year-old kid also, And I got to tell you, spending time with him is a lot of fun. We spent the whole summer going to Seabreeze here in Rochester. We bought the passports, and anytime we were together for a few hours, we would go there. And I get into it. Like, it's, taking your kid to the amusement park, please. I love it. I love going to the water park still and playing ring toss and everything. So, and then honestly, cooking. I love cooking. I spend all day on weekends cooking, and then at night, usually if I get home, I'll make dinner. Those are my things.
Dude, I love that. And I love y'all's neck of the woods up there, y'all. Like when I used to smoke briskets and pork butts on Saturdays when my Razorbacks are playing. And I kid you not, every Sunday I'd be like, I wonder what I'm going to eat today. And sure enough, my West Side friends rings the doorbell because grandma's sauce. And honestly, I thought it was just like sauce. I was like, you're bringing me like just sauce? I didn't know it was the whole shebang.
That's everything.
Yeah, it's amazing. I tried to
make your toolkit for the day. Yeah,
I tried to make it down here one time, and I sent Kevin a photo of my ingredients, and he was like, I can't even remember what he was. He's like, are you making something else? I was like, no, man, I'm making sauce. He's like, what the hell are those crackers for? And I was like, I don't know, they're saltines, dude. I looked it up online, and you said something like, dude, you got to go breadcrumbs, man.
For the
I can't remember, but Kevin pointed it out.
Breadcrumbs, real bread.
Like, and this is like 13 ingredients on my counter, and it's instant text message. What the hell are those crackers doing? I was like, I love you, dude. Like, I miss the West Siders. The East Siders are good too, but the West Siders have a true culture up there,
Yeah. And Kevin, I love that you combed through the ingredients, like that you zoomed in on the picture and you were like, scrutinizing the ingredients.
Yeah. Well, you gotta take the non-Italian down when you can. They think they can make it better than us, and I had to set fact from fiction. Paul, you mentioned you have a 5-year-old. I have a 3-year-old, as well as an 11-month. Tyler has an 18-month-old. I got to ask you, you're a working man, right? Now you're an entrepreneur. Finding time is challenging. I heard the other day, busy is the choice. I finished this great book called Do Nothing, because we're starting to wear busy as like this title, right? And what I realized too is that I was a workaholic because I was so afraid of looking myself in the mirror. No different than an alcoholic, drug addict, whatever we want to say. We're doing the behaviors for the same reasons. How did you fight back that dad guilt, right? That guilt, shame, fear. Maybe it's a little over from the Catholicism that I grew up in. I say I'm a recovering Catholic. But I realize it more and more is that I feel guilty that I'm spending time at work, right, to provide and protect and give a level of safety to the family. But I'm missing time with my kids. Right. And I just cannot, it's really hard for me to get over that. So any of my free time, I can't golf, don't want to golf because I'd rather spend time with my kids. How have you compartmentalized that? How have you worked your way through that? Because it's a thing that I don't think us dads really talk about too much, because we fall back to the stereotypical blueprints that we've seen. But what have you done in that category? It sounds like you're a family man. It sounds like you love the heck out of your 5-year-old. And we've all probably learned leadership lessons from our kids and just life lessons from our children. But how do you deal with that on the individual level?
So I would start by saying that I don't know that I have. I don't know that I can answer this well, because I am in the exact same boat you're in, where I'm constantly feeling that guilt. But I'll tell you what work I've done on it and where I'm at on it. So the work that I've done on it is that I ask people, this is what Rotary's great for, and other peers who are busy people, entrepreneurs and even non-entrepreneurs, just who are busy people. What do you do? And what I have come up with, I think, is to be very successful in life is hard. And it does take time. And work-life balance is something that we hear about sometimes, and I'm not good at it. And many, unfortunately, of my successful friends are also not good at it. The best thing I have come up with is that when you're at work, you be at work, and when you're at home, you be at home. And have you ever done this thing? Because this is the most guilt I feel. Have you ever had your kid trying to tell you something or show you something, and you're looking at your phone? You're looking at an email or something? It killed it inside of my heart. I go, I just lost heaven points. That's the type of shit you go to hell for, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I just lost. Speaking of Catholic, right? Look at all that guilt that just came out.
Just pour, makes you want to run there on Sunday for an hour. Yeah, and then we'll absolve you. Just put a couple of nickels in the basket on your way out.
That is the good thing about being Catholic. Just say you're sorry. You're good. You're back to here. It's great. I wish it was like that with my wife too, you know? I wish it was just like, sorry. Oh, yeah, okay, you're good. Anyway, I'd be like, you'd say the rosary twice. Your wife would be like, all right, 2 laundries and 1 mobile lawn. Right. anyway, I'm not good at it, but the one thing that I do is I try to make sure that I am all in when I'm home. So like one good day that I'm always home is Saturdays. I'm always home on Saturdays because my wife works on Saturday mornings. So I'm always going to have Saturday mornings, and I never schedule myself for anything. Always 100% of me is going to be dad on Saturdays. And that's about the best I can come up with. I'll look at my week, and my week might say Monday and Wednesday I have this function, but Tuesday I'm going to be home for dinner. And so when I get home for dinner on Tuesday, I'm home for dinner. I'm at the table. My phone is not out. I am looking at them. They don't realize that really in the back of my head, I do have work still churning. Yeah. But I hide it. I hide it best I can. Yeah.
Well,
so
I think what you're talking about is the Tyler and I are reading this book, but it keeps coming back to being present. You know, when you said I was always somewhere else, Paul. I mean, I was thinking about a meeting I had 2 weeks ago or a meeting that I had in 2 weeks, right? I was never really fully in the moment. I was there physically, but my mind was racing. It was elsewhere.
Same.
And I think that's really the power of being present and how much now that I am present and thanks to getting back to my faith, because that gives you somebody to hand your depression and your anxiety too, right? I don't need to deal with it. I got somebody else that's dealing with it for me. But I just love how you put that, you know, putting the phone away. I think that's such an easy thing, but hard thing to do. Even when my phone is dead, I still pull it out. And I'm like, man, I know it's dead. Why the hell do I keep pulling this phone out? And now it's become such a habit, but it's almost how do we walk back that habit and start to change? So my wife and I are now putting our phones in a box, a family box, just to really try to really disconnect. As well as I don't have work email on my phone anymore either, as crazy as that seems. But those are the 2 things that I've found most successful to allow me to kind of take back some of those times when I don't want to think about that stuff.
That's smart. I like that. You ever been on your phone and then you start panicking because you can't find your phone?
Not yet.
But it's because it's on your ear and you're reaching into your pocket going, where is it? Where did I leave it? Oh, I'm talking.
Yeah. Oh. That's like those phantom cries that we hear as parents. Yeah. You get the same one on your phone. You feel that phantom vibrate. You're like, wait, was that my phone?
Yeah.
Well, we're not addicted to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, man, guys, I wanted to get into a little craft cannery, if you don't mind, Paul.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about leadership after this quick question about it. Are you telling me that if I make a sauce, I contact you, I have $4,000? What does that? Where do you? $2,000.
$2,000. I get you on the market for less than $2,000.
And what does that entail? The abridged version. What does that entail for?
Let's take your barbecue sauce. So let's take a barbecue sauce. Tyler, you email me. First thing I do, I send you back an NDA because you're about to share proprietary information with me, your recipe. I'm about to share proprietary information with you, which is how we do things and our pricing, right? So we do a mutual NDA. Right after that, let's talk about this recipe. I'm going to have you send it to me. I want to see, is there anything about it that's, and I use this term, I put air quotes out, I say crazy, meaning like, do you use normal ingredients or do you require the like tears of a goat from the mountains of Australia to be imported by courier in
Yellow 5 and Mountain Dew crap, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm looking for red flags right off the bat. They're going to be, but assuming it's a pretty straightforward barbecue sauce recipe, we're going to have you in because we want to be hands-on. We're going to have you in for what's called a dial-in, or in your case, if you're in Texas, we can actually do it for you. We'll do it virtually, or we just do it and send it to you, UPS, so you can taste it. And we're going to create a prototype. Even though you've already made it at home, we need a prototype that we made our way in our store with our ingredients, so we can match what you're doing on your own. So even if you're like, I already know how to make this, we need to make it at our place once just to prove we can do it. So we'll do that. We charge a flat fee for that. That's a $1,000 flat fee. Once you say good to go, I'm going to get you through regulatory. I'll write all the legal portions of your label, which is like ingredient statement, nutrition analysis, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to get you scheduled for your first batch. First batch will be probably around the 25-gallon mark. So when I throw out that for under $2,000 thing, I'm talking about a quote unquote small batch. We do batches that are even up into the 100-gallon, or we do 700-800 gallons in a day too. So that'll be the next step. And then you're off and running. But that first batch in a small kettle could be, will likely be, especially on a barbecue sauce, like maybe $600, maybe 300 bottles, $2-3 a pop, $600 to $900. So where I'm coming from when I say for under $2,000 is, I'll get you rolled out I'll get you that first batch for under $2,000.
Wow, and are you slapping my logo on and all that stuff?
Yeah, your label. Yep. Absolutely.
Paulie, when you found this over time, it sounds like, right? And everybody's kind of searching for their passion, searching for their purpose. Like, how much better does it feel though to wake up? I mean, you had the sauce, don't get me wrong, but how much better does life feel like now that you kind of have a better idea? I think you're putting your finger on, maybe this is what I was supposed to do, make other people's dreams a reality. It sounds like you get to play Dreamweaver all day. Like that sounds, I'm oversimplifying it, please, but how long did it take, or what have you noticed before and after the craft cannery came to you as an idea? Like, what have you noticed just on your personal level and professional level? How much better has it made you?
So I've noticed that I have confidence, to always just bring it back to Rotary. I'm in meetings all the time that are not related to my work, that might be in the not-for-profit world, or I sit on 4 different not-for-profit boards in Rochester, where there's leaders. The whole thing is made up of leaders. It's CEOs and presidents all around a table. And I remember those first times I was ever in those circles that I was very timid. I mean, I wouldn't know. How should I know? Why? I'm the dumbest person here by a mile, right? And I've since learned, I think, after making a couple good calls, and I've made plenty of bad calls too, don't get me wrong. But after making a couple of good calls, I have learned, I've really learned to have confidence that what I'm saying is probably not that far off. Even if it is off, it's probably not that far off. And I've even had some times where even recently, where I don't say something because I assume that it's a stupid take or stupid opinion. And then it finally comes out that actually that's the answer we end up getting to. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should have just said that. I actually knew that. It's given me confidence. Confidence, really I know cool. What I'm talking about, but trying to also walk the line of confidence, but keep humility. So you still don't want to walk in the room and be like, well, I'm an expert. Like, no, nobody is. Calm down.
And maybe that's our upbringing, because that's the same fine line that I think there's a huge balance to what you just said, because you want to remain humble, right? But how have you found towing that line? Because then people will call you egotistical, and you and I and Tyler have all been around those people, and we're like, I hate that guy, but I wish I was that guy in some regard, right? And some of the things, like I said earlier, some of the things we dislike most about others are the things we hate most about ourselves. But how have you walked that line? Because it is a fine line.
Yeah. So I actually am pretty good about, if I'm wrong, I say I was wrong. If I need to apologize, I apologize. Yeah. And it's really surprising to me how many people will not do either one of those two things under any circumstances. And so, like, if you just were wrong, and honestly, being a business owner and driving a business, steering a ship this size is really just, if you are wrong, you gotta pivot, or you will crash your shit into the freaking wall. You have no choice but to be wrong. And there's been times where I've toyed in my head with, I wonder if that's why some people they can get to management level, but they can never truly steer a ship, because they just have never learned how to say, I was wrong and we need to pivot. But for some reason, that doesn't bother me that much. I don't know why. That's a little secret, maybe superpower of mine, is that saying I was wrong, or saying that I'm sorry because I made a mistake, or I'm sorry for any reason, any apology, has gotten me so far with my wife. It's gotten me far in business. Just say you were wrong and move on. But man, if you don't say you're wrong, you can do a lot of damage, especially, well, of course, in personal relationships, but also in business. You can start costing yourself a ton of money if you want to die on a hill that you have no business dying on.
Yeah. Well, just like you said, I think sometimes that's pure confidence, right? That's true self-love, self-awareness, self-acceptance. When you can apologize and it's not personal, right? And I think some of these comments and things like you said, we take it more personal than we should. So I loved how you put that, Paul. Thank you for that.
Yeah, man.
Well, thank you.
Paul, do you think working in the radio helped you in business? I mean, seeing all walks of life, being able to respond to, like you said earlier, 1,000 different situations, 1,000 different things to talk about. Do you see how that correlates? You're almost like raw, man. Like you're not like that self-cut, you know how those people talk, they're sorry. And you're like, man, I just want to know how you effed up, dude. Like you've never, ever done that. Do you feel that helped you to at least present yourself in a different way?
Yeah. Because another one of my sort of secrets is I go everywhere. I talk to everybody. I attend function. I love talking to strangers. I love learning about people. And that all came from radio. That all just came from years and years of live dead air, right? Like you just got to keep going. I mentioned I was with Weeze for all those years, but I also, during those years, especially the last few years, I became sort of the designated hitter of iHeartMedia Rochester. And so I would, like, if this guy was off, I would go host that show. And if that guy was off, I would go host that show. And so I've had hours and hours and hours and hours of airtime that was just dependent on my filling it. And so just keep talking. And how that translates is when I go out in public in Rochester, I will walk up to anybody and talk to anybody about anything. And I actually have to tell you, that's something I love about myself. I think that it's rare. I don't think a lot of people will do. It's not like it's unheard of, but it's not. A lot of people just stay in their shell. They want to stay with the group they came with, and like I'm like, no, I want to. I saw that. I read about that guy in the RBJ. I want to go meet that guy. I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with that, other than radio did help. It gave me the ability to carry on a basic conversation with almost anybody. The other thing is I'm in manufacturing now. And years ago, when I was trying to get into manufacturing, is I realized that when I was in rooms, when I was in meeting rooms, conference rooms with contract manufacturers, that there wasn't, this is going to be I'm going to sound like such a dick. Okay. I just realized that there wasn't a ton of personality in manufacturing. And I started to realize that if I was in charge of meetings, that I could really make a meeting fun for people. And that, that I could open people up, I think. What am I trying to say?
No, I think building the trust. I think in those areas, right? And I was just talking about it today in the corporate office, right? The C-suite. There's a lot of trust. I mean, they're so close to it, but the further and further you get down the line, there's a lot of people that have a lot of PTSD. I mean, we look back at the pandemic, Paul. Who are some of the first people to be asked to leave? Those on the front line, right? And not really given a why, not really given a reason. So I think you have a very distrusting audience and a very inauthentic leadership that don't allow them to really build those connections, and connections not only through work, but also through life. And you had radio. Tyler has done his stuff. He was a waiter. I was a bartender. Like, I think some of these things that we've done throughout our lives at the time didn't really seem all that glamorous. But now we can kind of look back on it and say, man, that was really influential in my development to make me the person that I am today, that I can talk to a CEO just as much as I can talk to that same guy begging for money at the end of 390, right? It's really no different. It's just seeing people for people, not for titles, not for job descriptions or duties, right? Or expectations. It's just seeing the other human. And I think we tend to be feelers. It sounds like the three of us are healers, Sometimes I have a tough time turning that off because I always want to help people.
Yeah,
but I think that just listening to you, and it's some of this stuff that I've never seen as a strength until I see it in somebody else, and somebody else admits it. Like, man, like you said, I didn't know that would be something that should be said. I thought everybody knew that, but I will say it anyways, and it's really, really hard.
I think I just blabbered and wasted like 5 minutes of your podcast, and I appreciate it. But you know what it actually is? Because there's a bit of a secret to it, and it helps if you're genuine. What is everybody's favorite topic? Everybody's favorite topic is always themselves.
Yeah.
So if you walk up to anybody at any function and you just start interviewing them about themselves, they fucking love you. Because you got them talking about their favorite thing, which was themselves. Oh. And I think that's the trick. I think that's the life hack, maybe, that I just do on accident because I actually do care about them. I do want to know about this person. And that's something that I think has gotten me far. And I'm still trying desperately to answer the question from 10 minutes ago. Tyler.
No, Paulie, I think you nailed it on the head, man. And dude, I'll share a 10-second story with you too, dude. I cracked the code the other day just having fun at a networking event. People were like, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a dad and I'm a Razorback. What do you do?" And they just were like, "But what?" At 5 minutes later, they're like, "But what do you do?" I was like, "I don't know. We have UAB this weekend. What do you do?" And like 10 minutes later, it was like, "Really, bro? What do you do?" But then I got people talking about what they liked. Some dude liked chess. I asked him if he liked the rook or the knight more. Then he went on to this freaking whole gambit about how he hates the freaking rook because it always blindsides him. Then I had someone else talking about their gardening, and we're at this networking event talking about business. So we thought to what we really liked, man. It was pretty damn fun, Paulie. And interviewing people.
Even I remember during the pandemic, we used to have fun with that though. Every time we used to meet people, we would never it would totally change the conversation. But I think, Paulie, what you said, when you get them talking about themselves, it gives you those opportunities to build connections off of something entirely different than our fucking jobs, right?
Yes, and you know what the tempting thing is?
Like, it's crazy.
And you know how you do it well is the temptation is when they start talking about themselves, what do 95% of people do? As soon as they hear a common thing, they go, "Oh, me too. Oh, that. Yeah, I just right, the one. Yeah." If you just don't let it happen. Block that out. Let them finish their sentence and then ask them the next question about themselves. So many people are just waiting for the connection, and then they go, "Oh, now let me talk about myself."
Yeah.
It's fun.
You know what Tyler was thinking about with chess? With chess, had to be invented centuries ago. It had to have been invented by a woman who was secretly trying to make sure that we all knew men were useless and women were the queens of the universe, because the queen can do anything. The king, useless. The king is the most useless piece. He's just like, "I guess I'll move one step." The queen's like, "I'll go anywhere and get this job done." Anyway, I don't know.
Well, since we got 4 minutes left, I do want to ask this one question. What does your wife love most about you, Paul?
Well, I'll let you know if I ever find out. We're still looking for it. I think she says I'm dependable. That is something that I've heard her say before. I'm dependable. If I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. That seems like something you would like out of a third cousin, but I'm married to something off of that one thing.
Hey, that's powerful.
Well, Paul, let's ask you a couple leadership questions, if you don't mind, man, before we jump off here. So you're definitely running the ship at Craft Cannery. How do you get everyone else bought in the way you're bought in? And you keep using the word fun. How do you have fun with your team? And how do you keep them bought in like you're bought in?
So I'm here every day. I'm involved. I'm face to face with them every day. I tell them a lot of behind the scenes stuff about how the business works. I will talk to anybody about anything, and I love knowing what motivates them. Pretty early, I learned that I have 16 employees right now, and they require 16 different leadership styles. They are all different, and some respond to tough love, and some will run if you give them tough love, right? Some need patted on the back. I got a hockey goalie who runs production. That kid wants his ass whooped. Like, that kid wants to be told, like, "What do you mean you got 600 gallons done today? 700, brother. Tomorrow it needs to be set." Like, that's what he wants. I have other people that if I talk to that way, they'd be gone in an instant. they're not, that's not the way they want to be spoken to. And so I think it was learning that 16 different personalities need to be treated 16 different ways and taking the time to actually learn about them. Now, I don't know how I would scale that to 1,600 employees, but right now it's still working for me.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the role of your middle tier management, right? If you're modeling that way, and that's how you multiply yourself. And I just love how you said that, individualize and personalize it 16 different ways, but that's you taking the time and caring. How have you figured it out? Right. Because other leaders say, hey, Paulie, that sounds great, but how do I figure out what type of leadership style my team needs? Maybe that's my direct team of just 6 peers. How did you get to that level with those 16?
So it's ongoing. I wouldn't say it's perfect by any means, but on the one hand, it seems simple, but obviously talk to them, get to know them a little bit, have one-on-ones. The one-on-ones should really, a lot of time should be spent listening to them. You want to know what's going on in their life to the extent they're willing to share. You can't force anyone to share about their personal life, but professionally, you want to know what are they liking about what they're doing? What are they not liking about what they're doing? And where do they want to get to? What's the next step for them professionally? And then letting them know you'll support them and help them get there. You start to earn a little trust, having them ask you questions, being willing to answer questions. And then back to something I said earlier, if you screw up and I stand in front of those people and I tell all 16 of them I made a bad decision on that one, I screwed that up, that goes a long way too. There's a lot of managers out there, I think, who you will never hear them tell you that they screwed up. And I think it shocks them sometimes when I go, fuck that one up. Sorry, guys.
It just humanizes you, though. I thought leaders were perfect, So if I was imperfect, who was I to talk to them, or who was I to think that I could even visualize that for myself, because I clearly wasn't perfect unless I pretended to be perfect, but that got exhausting too.
And then did you have some managers too, Kevin, and those over the time, as you got to know them, you realized, they're not perfect. They have weaknesses. Imagine how powerful it would be if they were aware of their weakness and they said, Kevin, boy, I am really not great at that, but I've noticed you are. Can you help me? What's your expertise on that? Can you help me figure that out? That can go.
But I think, Paulie, that's like we'd be talking bullshit to one another if I wasn't lying. It's like this internal competition, even though nobody wants to call it a competition, right? So I never saw it as a competition. I saw that we were all working on a team to get better. I always thought my performance should speak for myself. I was terrible at the self-advocacy internally because I just thought it was a waste of time, keeping me further away from the goal that they were giving me. But there's a lot of other people that used to, kiss ass, for lack of a better term, focus on how to develop a relationship to make that person feel really good. Like we're all saying as our superpower out in the real world. But in the business, they were doing that rather than performing. Or you had some of your highest performers then get promoted into leadership roles and they didn't even want that role. So there's a lot of different things. But in this conversation, I can't wait to be on your podcast. And I can't wait to be hopefully a future Rotarian myself, because Paul, you're the type of people I want to surround myself with. I think, unfortunately, we're few and far between, but seeing somebody that has done it, walking in their authentic, in their passion and their purpose is just inspiring for others, because we see those chinks in the armor. You are vulnerable. You are transparent, building essential building blocks for trust. Those 16 people sound like they'll go to war for you. But it sounds like you've done it through intention, spending the time, slowing down to speed up, and really ultimately listening. So I really enjoyed today's conversation.
I can't thank you guys enough for having me. It was such an honor. I can't even believe I got to watch an episode live. Everyone else this is recorded for, but I just got to watch a whole episode live. What a treat.
Paul, you're awesome, man. That definitely wants you in my corner too, Paulie, man. We do a lot of these, and you can smell authentic people very, very quickly. And my goodness, when you jumped on with your wife's sunglasses, I was like, this guy is on my team. So I appreciate your lunch break, and hopefully I get up there someday and we can go take a little food tour, man.
Anytime. I would love that. Anytime. And you're always invited to Rotary. Kevin, you're in Rochester, right? So you come whenever you want, man. Every Tuesday at noon.